Well, well, well. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. Shout out to the YouTube streets. This is your home girl, Arabia Barbosa 914, Westchester County, New York. Coming to you with another live video, So we live. That's exactly where we are, who we are, what we doing right now. I'm telling you, I'm a little sleepy. I couldn't go to sleep earlier. So I looked on the YouTube streets and no one was live. Nothing was happening. So what I did, I downloaded a language app for Swahili. And I started going over some of the exercises and little tidbits for that. And I knew a lot. I knew how to introduce myself, how to ask what your name is, to ask where you're from, to tell you where I'm from. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. Yeah. Swahili is a very easy language to learn. It's very easy, very simple. All it is repetition. You learn Swahili the same way you learned your first language. I don't care if it's English. I don't care if it's Spanish. I don't care if it's Portuguese. I don't care what other tongue you speak in. In order to learn it, you have to learn what you first learned when you first started speaking, when you first started talking. You're going to have to know your numbers, colors, what things are, directions, how to ask for certain things, and last but not least, how to insult people, how to do everything in that language. And it's all basic. You learn Swahili by reading what you see in front of you. And the way it is written is the way you speak it. It's the way you talk. So shout out to the chat. I did that for a little while. And then I did some short videos. And you know what I've decided to do? Every week on this channel, I have decided to do short videos, short content on serial killers, the criminal justice system, and last but not least, generational trauma. Generational trauma. Basically, I want to talk about not what's going on these YouTube streets, but I want to talk about everyday situations, current events. And we got a lot going on with the criminal justice system. We got a lot going on with the prison system. We got a lot going on with parole system, probation, people being sentenced to do drug court, to complete drug court sessions. Just everyday stuff that's dealing with current events. And lately, I've been doing a lot of short videos circling around killers, serial killers, and other tragic events. I don't know if anyone remembers that lady. It was a few years ago. It was founded when she was being evicted from her apartment in Detroit, Michigan. They found 2 children buried and forgotten in a deep freezer. 2 young Black children that were found in a deep freezer in the apartment unit they lived in with their mother and 2 other siblings. The woman in that case, her name was Michelle Blair. She killed her son, Stephen, and she killed her daughter, Stormy. Now, she said that the reason why she killed them is because they were sexually abusing their youngest sibling. That is the reason why she said she killed them. But a lot of people have to be honest. We have to be honest with that particular case to Bear. She wasn't feeding them. She wasn't taking care of them properly. She was physically abusive towards those children until she ended up killing them. That particular woman grew up in a house where she too was a victim of physical child abuse. And we all have heard the stories. We all know what goes on in the Black community and certain families where there's a lot of dysfunction. Where there is dysfunction, there is abuse, there is trauma, there is violence, and sometimes there is death. There is death. Not only physically, but spiritually and emotionally. She killed them. She murdered them. She buried them, not in the backyard, not in the crawl space of her apartment, not in a field far away from where they lived, not in an abandoned building, in her own apartment, in a deep freezer. And I'm sad to say, I'm sorry to say, that not only is our community being affected by child abuse or the mistreatment of children, it seems to be going on in other ethnic groups, but it mostly happens with us. And sometimes the numbers of these children's deaths, their passing, is not recorded. It is not reported. It is not put on national news. But in her particular case, it went national. It became a national story. She was exposed. And when she was exposed, she took responsibility, but she didn't do the right thing. 2 children died. 2 human beings passed away because of her selfish deeds and the things that she was doing to them. Generational trauma. That is a major concern in our community, because if you talk to your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, they're going to tell you when they were growing up, their parents disciplined them in a physical way. And a lot of times the physical discipline got out of hand. People got hurt. People got killed. There's plenty of cases all over the United States where children are being murdered every day, where children are being abused every day, where children are being starved and neglected every fucking day. But a lot of that abuse is not being reported. A lot of people keep silent. We have heard when we were growing up, whatever happens in this house stays in this house. Don't you dare tell anyone what's going on in this house. It was terrible. When I went back over the case and I heard her interview, I heard the terrible things she said, I was in disbelief. I was in shock. But I know it's a reality. I shouldn't have been surprised. I shouldn't have been in shock. But that is what happens when you are not dead on the inside. Everything becomes a surprise party. Everything is a surprise. It's like something new, even though it's common. And that's a very common thing, because Black parents do beat on their children. And in most cases, some parents abuse their children. And a lot of times it passes from one generation to the next generation to the next generation. Because people don't know how to handle their stresses. They don't know how to handle their stress level. And it needs to be talked about. There's no need for shame or silence. People need to start speaking up. Because the foster care system, the welfare, the child welfare system is being flooded, crowded by children that are being abused and thrown away by their own families, by their own parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, extended relatives. Shout out to the chat. Good morning, Ms. VA. Good morning, VA. Thank you for coming in. Yeah, but I'm not going to be up here that long. I just wanted to do this short live video about what I've been seeing on the internet and what I have read in the past. And the first time I became acquainted with the Michelle Blair story is when Sotomayor was still on these YouTube streets because he was doing current events and he was talking about the dysfunction of the Black community, of the Black family. He was talking about it and people got mad at him. People got upset. You know what they told him? They said, "You're making us look bad. You shouldn't tell our secrets. What happens in our community should stay in our community. And we don't care who get hurt. We don't care who get killed. We don't care who gets destroyed." And like I said a few days ago, in our community, the Black community, we got a lot of serial rapists running around, and we got a lot of serial killers running around. People call them gangbangers. A lot of the gang members, street organizations, drug dealers are behind the murders that take place in our neighborhoods, in our streets, in our community, and we don't talk about it. We don't say nothing. We be quiet. Why? Why are we so silent? Why do we refuse to speak up? We speak up about everything else. We speak up about everything fucking else that don't make no fucking sense. You look all over these social media platforms. What are we doing? Laughing, talking it up, gossiping, dancing. Free entertainment for the whole world to see. We're on display. Because they don't really flash anyone else. They flash us the most. Why? Ask yourself the question. And I don't mean no harm. I'm glad Tommy Sotomayor brought that story to the YouTube streets because it got people to talk. People were starting to talk. When that woman ended up getting her life sentence, we thought it was the end of it. We thought we would never hear from her again. But that was a lie, wasn't it? Wasn't it a lie? Because that woman went into the penitentiary still broken, still traumatized, still fucked up in her mind, in her soul, her spirit. This woman is a destroyed woman walking around. How many more women in our community is walking around like that? Filled up with a lot of hate, rage, anger. They're seething on the inside and it comes out in the wrong way. Shout out to the chat. But it doesn't start and end with Michelle Blair. The shit been going on. The shit been going on for years and years. The father that is my biological father, he talked about when he was young, how his father used to treat him when he was growing up. He said my grandfather used to whip him like a fucking slave, strip him out of his clothes, whip him like he was a fucking slave. But that's the way my grandfather was raised. His father was raised. His father before him. So it was a generational thing that got passed down. Me and my brother Yes, we ended up in foster care, but they were just certain things we could not escape from. It was already in the blood. It was already in the DNA. I don't mean no harm. Both of us are alcoholics. He's a closet one, and I was more out in the open. I got 2 months clean, 2 months sober. And I know that alcohol abuse is just a symptom of what really is going on. And I thought once I put down the bottle, once I stopped drinking, that all that anger and all that hate and all that rage would just disappear. It would just walk away from me. It would go away. It would be like a ghost. It would be like nothing ever happened. The shadow is gone. The darkness is gone. I'm here. But it wasn't, the alcohol wasn't the problem. I was the problem. I'm still the problem. I'm 52 years old. I don't know when the universe is going to call me back to from which I came. And I will not be going to my mother's womb. I will be going into the womb of the ground, of the earth. Shout out to the chat. But I didn't ever have not one child. Not one. Never been pregnant. Never went through most of those things that most young women went through. I was spared. I was spared that. But there's a high price for everything. There is a high price for me not participating in certain activities which would extend not my life physically, but everything else about me. Shout out to the chat. And that's reality. So Michelle Blair right now is sitting in someone's prison, but her nightmare is not over. It'll never be over. It'll never be finished. Not only is she carrying the trauma from her childhood or from the the things that travel from generation to generation, she's carrying the weight of the fact that she killed her 2 children. You can't tell me that woman don't think about that. That woman don't remember what she did or what she didn't do. She was not a good mother. She was a broken woman, an empty vessel. Just waiting to explode, just waiting to pour all the poison our community onto her own children, innocent victims. Victims of circumstance. But it's more than circumstance. Because there's a lot of healing that has to happen in our community in order for everything to flow correctly. I don't know when that's going to happen. It may never happen. It may never take place in my lifetime, but one day, sometime soon come. I hope that day comes soon. Before more people get hurt and more people die. I'm not worried about us going into World War III. We're already in World War III, right in our own homes. And nobody is talking about it. There's a few YouTubers that are talking about it, that are reporting about things like this, but not enough. I know everyone going to want to do their own content. That's fine. Nobody can tell them what to do. That's their channels. That's their voice. That's their platform. That's their subscribers. That's their support team, whatever. Shout out to the chat. But I was just sitting here thinking about it. I was like, and that woman had to go back to court not too long ago. Before I moved into this apartment, that woman had to go back to a court to face more charges for assaulting a correctional officer, which they added 10 more years to her life sentence. That means that she's not improving. That means that she's not growing. That means that she's not changing. She's not changing. She's the same person she was before she went in, and I believe that's the way she's gonna be when she dies, when she passes away. But she's not the only one. She the one that got caught. She the one that got caught. But what about all those other women that are not being caught? They're not being arrested. They're not going in front of a judge. They're not being convicted of murder or child abuse or child neglect. There's very little cases of that going into the prisons now. A lot of women go to prison for something else. But there are some in prison sitting life sentence, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years for what? Killing their own kids. Killing their own babies. They didn't go to an abortion clinic and had the baby aborted. They didn't put the baby in foster care. They didn't put the baby up for adoption. They didn't abandon the baby at a hospital or fire department or the police department precinct. They killed them. Slowly but surely. I don't know how anyone else would feel if you walking down the street and somebody just comes up to you and punches you in the face. How does that feel to you when somebody hits you? What is your response as an adult? You're going to fight back, right? If somebody pushes you, you're going to push back. Somebody hits you, you're going to kick, you're going to hit, you're going to start fighting. But a little small child don't have that choice. They don't have the strength to do that. They don't. And when these kids are being mistreated, what do? They go out of the house. They go to a school somewhere. They start hanging out with their little friends. And before you know it, these kids become teenagers. Then the cycle starts all over again. And what have we learned? Absolutely nothing. We learned nothing. Not only did I put up a short about Michelle Blair, but I also put up a short about the BTK killer and how this man was a family man. He had a full-time job. He was a military veteran. He was a church leader. He worked within his own community, helping the community. But at the same time, he was a serial killer. He broke into people's homes, tied them up, tortured them, sexually molested them, then killed them. And he walked away. I don't know how many different times. Most of his victims were women. Most of his victims were women. He's in jail. He's in prison right now, serving what? A life sentence. He's never going to get out. He's dying in there. Shout out to the chat. But he was in plain sight. He would have never been caught by law enforcement authorities if he didn't get cocky. If he didn't start contacting the newspapers and the police himself. He caught up his own self in his own fucking web. Shout out to the chat. He'll never get out. He's there for life. She will never get out. She's there for life. And then there was another short I did with a woman that married a man. They got married. They wasn't married a month when this woman decided to kill him, dismember him, cook him, and she ate some of his remains. I'm not worried about the problems going on in this sector. I'm worried about everything around me. Everything going on in the world. That's what I'm concerned about. Shout out to the chat. I'm not going to be up here that long, but I just wanted to come through and let people know what I was thinking. You know. And we are in a terrible state in America and the whole world. I thought we was getting better with the technology we got, with the money people are making, the advantages people have, the opportunities people have. People are being gifted with so many good things, but it just seems like it's not a good thing. Shout out to the chat. So it is what it is. I'm out of here. I hope everyone has an awesome weekend. Because I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Sunday. And then tomorrow I go back to work. But tomorrow I do not have to walk downtown. Tomorrow I'll take the bus. Because I was scheduled to go back to work on Monday. So, shout out to the chat. Shout out to the chat. It is what it is. 914, which is the county of New York. This is your homegirl, Arabia Barbosa. 914. Doing a real quick video. Another live, but it's going to be a quick one. It's not going to be an hour live. I hope it's not 30 minutes. I might talk too long, but anyway. Peace.